Hi, friends. I'm going to link below to an article from CTV News in Canada about a doctor there, Joanne Liu, hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, who was supposed to deliver a lecture here at NYU earlier in March, but had it canceled at the very last moment. The article itself links to an op-ed that Dr. Liu wrote in French. Those of you who can read French can read it in the original, and Google provides a rough translation of it. And I recommend both articles to you. So, a little bit of background. Dr. Liu is a pretty big deal. She's a pediatric emergency medicine physician. She trained at McGill University and the University of Montreal, which are two of the best universities in Canada and really in the whole world. And then she did a fellowship here at NYU in the 1990s. Currently, she's teaching at both the University of Montreal and McGill, but she spent most of her career working for Doctors Without Borders, or Médecins Sans Frontières, excuse my pronunciation. She worked all over the world, Asia, Africa, the Middle East, wherever conflict or disease or disaster necessitated massive humanitarian aid. MSF itself was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1999. And between 2013 and 2019, Dr. Liu was the international president of MSF. For her work, she's received various accolades, the National Order of Quebec, the Meritorious Cross of Canada, and she was even named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world in 2015. So, like I said, kind of a big deal. In recent months, Dr. Liu has mostly canceled her presentations here in the United States, but she decided to make an exception for her alma mater, for NYU. You'd think that NYU would be thrilled to have such a distinguished alumna addressing it, but instead, just less than a day before her presentation, objections were raised to a specific slide she was to include, which showed the number of humanitarian worker deaths in Gaza in 2024. Apparently, there were fears that this could be considered antisemitic. Now, however you feel about the rights and wrongs of the Israel-Hamas war, that's pretty absurd on the face of it. Apparently, there were also objections to a slide showing a photograph of President Zelensky of Ukraine together with President Trump in the White House during that infamous meeting, and to the fact that Dr. Liu decried the destruction of USAID. Those were both considered anti-government, as if Dr. Liu or NYU has any obligation to be pro-regime. Dr. Liu offered to edit her presentation and remove some of the offending material, but apparently that wasn't good enough, and the entire presentation was canceled, although NYU was gracious enough to pay for her return flight back to Canada. Friends, this is shameful. I know many of you have read Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny. The first chapter, the first lesson in that book has already become famous. Do not obey in advance. And that's exactly what NYU has done in this case. In some ways, it's even more shameful, if you can believe this, than the way it abandoned the trans youth in the wake of Trump's illegal and unconstitutional executive order. At least there was an illegal and unconstitutional executive order in that case. In this case, it seems they've folded like a cheap suit on their own initiative. NYU, what are you thinking? Do you really think that your shameful capitulation will save you, will save us? Of course it won't. The only question is to what degradation you'll sink to next and who you'll sell out. Where are your values? Where's your patriotism? Friends, most of us are Americans, either by birth or by choice. And I dare say all of us love freedom. And that makes us the true patriots. It's pretty clear that no one's going to fight for us but us. Are you ready to fight to preserve our livelihoods and our liberty? I know I am. Let's do this.